Yeah, well, there's not many 7'2" guys rolling around with the skill set that he has.
I think the thing that I respect is what Kai Sotto is. He's clearly putting in the work.
I believe in Kai Sotto. If I was an investor, I would buy stock in Kai Sotto.
Kai Sotto was nearly 7 foot by the time he was 16. By the time he was 18, he was a professional basketball player. And by the time he was 20 years old, he is by far the best basketball player from the Philippines to this day. He's been compared to the likes of Kristaps Porzingis, Kevin Durant, and even has been tipped to be the next Yao Ming. Just a few months ago, analysts were predicting Sotto to be picked somewhere in the first round. However, it's July and the NBA draft came and went without Sotto being picked at all. How did the best Filipino basketball player in the world, a player who's so dominant that he can only be compared to Yao Ming, the same player who started playing professional basketball as a teenager, go undrafted just a few months after being considered as the steal of the draft? I guarantee you the answer will surprise you, but not as surprised as you will be when I tell you that Kai Sotto still has a chance to be an NBA legend despite going undrafted. Before we get to the content, make sure you drop a like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications to help the channel grow. And if you want a shorter version of this story, make sure you check us out on TikTok and on Instagram. Now that we got all that out of the way, cue the intro. Despite living in the Philippines, growing up, Kai Sotto was surrounded by basketball. Over the past few decades, ever since the 1990s, the NBA has made considerable efforts to help grow the game of basketball worldwide overseas, specifically in the country of the Philippines. In the words of Mark Tatum, the NBA CFO, there's really no place like the Philippines when it comes to basketball. It's our highest affinity market in the world. 99% of Filipinos know who the NBA is. As a result, by the time the young Kai Sotto came into the world, the Philippines had a basketball hoop on every corner. Like soccer, basketball is such a popular game worldwide because of how easy it is to pick up and play. A makeshift hoop there, a plastic ball here, it didn't matter. It still makes the same swoosh that basketball players all fell in love with across the world. Sotto didn't just happen to walk across a basketball, however. His own father, Irvin Sotto, played professional basketball in the Filipino Basketball Association and was even a top 10 draft pick in the 2004 draft. His father was listed as a 6'7" forward who in his whole 7-season career didn't play more than 10 minutes per game. Despite not being a star, his father's suiting up and playing basketball as a living inspired the young Kai Sotto to fall in love with the game of basketball. And by the time he was a young boy watching his father get boards in the PBA, he knew that one day he wanted to not just play basketball professionally, but make it to the game's highest level in the NBA. Sotto was always gifted with height, as aforementioned his father was 6'7", but his mother was a solid 6 foot tall, meaning that Sotto was probably going to be as tall, if not taller than his father. Ever since I went to school, I've really been the tallest in my class. Sotto would even go on to say that he started tracking his height in grade 5, and that's where he would begin to reach 6 feet. According to Sotto, at age 13, he grew to 6'3". A year later, as he turned 14, he already stood 6'5", but before the school year could end, he gained 2 more inches as he rose to his father's height of 6'7", all before he entered high school. In the 8th grade, Sotto would transfer to Ateneo High School to begin his high school basketball career, and immediately upon arrival, he would help improve the team and would win the UAAP Season 79 Rookie of the Year award, averaging 4.6 points, 5.1 rebounds, and a league-leading 1.5 blocks per game. His defense was already elite at the high school level, and when you consider at the age of 15 he was going up against grown 18-plus-year-old men, his offensive stats became even more impressive as well. As a sophomore, Kai Sotto helped lead Ateneo High School to a near undefeated season, and during the finals game, Sotto and his team were down 6 points with only a handful of time left remaining. Ateneo High School called a timeout as they had just given up 2 easy points, and their head coach was practically begging his starting 5 to put something together. But at this point in time, Kai Sotto, unlike everybody else, was as cool as ever and simply looked at his coach saying, "Whatever happens, we'll win this game." Sotto, with the help of his teammates, would help tie the score at 58, and with time winding down, Sotto's teammate would drive to the basket for the game-winning layup. and miss, a play he's been used to seeing way too often. As everyone thought the game would go into overtime, Sotto jumped into the air with his 7-foot gargantuan frame, got the offensive board, and put the ball in for the game-winning basket. Sotto would say that I always want to follow the drives of my teammates because they're not going to make it 100% of the time. If it goes in, then it's 2 points. If it doesn't, then at least I'll be there. We just played our hearts out today. Sotto finished his undefeated season with 19 points, 13 rebounds, and 3 blocks en route to being named Finals MVP. Sotto was just 16 years old and was already a hero around the Philippines. He was the country's best basketball prospect in decades, and watching him on the court was a spectacle not only for basketball fans, but for regular people who just wanted to see greatness on display. With all this attention and essentially being placed on a pedestal, you'd expect Sotto to be confident, maybe even cocky, and rightfully so full of himself. Well, the truth is, despite all the attention, Sotto was a humble young man who said, "My Finals MVP award is for my team. I wouldn't be able to get that award if not for my coaches, my teammates, and my family. Without them, we wouldn't be here." Sotto at just the age of 16 would be invited to PBA practices with teams and would even match up against Filipino professional basketball players where he fared well, and would even play at their level of basketball as just a teenager. As a junior, Sotto had done it all already. He was the best basketball player in the country. He won the high school championship. He was the Finals MVP. What else could he do to show people that he hadn't just gotten better, but he was a future all-time great? Well, like his father, Sotto picked up shooting. Sotto at the time was at his known height of 7'3", and with his 7-foot frame, he already had a very fluid shooting form thanks to his father and inspired by Kristaps Porzingis. His new skill helped transform Sotto from a lockdown center who dominated the paint into a two-way stretch 5 who could use his body in the paint as well if he wanted to. Sotto averaged 25.1 points, 13.9 rebounds, and 2.6 blocks per game as he won the league's MVP, further proving that despite the fact that he was just a teenager, he was the country's best player by a wide margin. As a matter of fact, he was such a good player that although he was taking history classes and science classes in the daytime, at nighttime he would practice with the Philippine FIBA team, and it was so well liked by the team that Ronald Mascarenas, the man who funds the Philippines men's national team, said that we're very excited about Kai Sotto. He's the Yao Ming or the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar of the Philippines. At this point, Kai Sotto was being compared to plenty of players in the NBA, such as Kristaps Porzingis, Kevin Durant, and even fellow future draftee Chet Holmgren. By this time, Sotto and his family had come to the agreement that basketball-wise, there wasn't much left for Sotto in the Philippines. Sure, the whole country loved him as their prodigy, and he easily could have lived off of that for the rest of his career, but Sotto wanted more than that. So as a result, he moved to the United States to play basketball for not a high school, not even college, but the NBA G League. That's right, Sotto at the same time he was getting his high school diploma had commitments not only to play in the G League, but also the Skill Factory in Georgia. Sotto was recruited to multiple Division I colleges such as Kentucky and USC, but chose to forego his collegiate eligibility to become a professional athlete in the G League and TSF. For those of you wondering what TSF is, the Skills Factory is a junior NBA affiliated program that boasts alumni such as NBA MVP James Harden and NBA All-Stars John Wall and Kemba Walker. You'd be forgiven for thinking that Sotto would crumble in the United States. Sure, he has the size and the build, but the United States has better competition that's trained their whole lives, right? Right? Wrong, because in his first ever United States basketball game while playing for the Skills Factory, Kai Sotto would put up an impressive double-double of 18 points and 12 rebounds against one of the top programs in the entire country, IMG Academy. Sotto continued to tear up the league he played in, proving that despite growing up in the Philippines, his game was world-class. Former NBA player and now NBA talent evaluator Chuck Person would even say, "There's no 7'2" guy doing this at all." He continued with, so far, with kids his age, he's probably in the top 2, if not at the top, and that his basketball IQ is exceptional, and I see him being a star going forward in the NBA for a long time. He's just that special. After dominating with the Skills Factory, Sotto was set to play for the G League's Ignite team, a team created specifically for the purpose of developing young players. But before he could arrive in time to play for the team, the COVID-19 pandemic hit, a virus that essentially stopped the world in its tracks. As a result, instead of just missing missing the season and waiting a year since he already dismissed his college eligibility, last minute Kai Sotto pivoted in order to sign a contract to play in the NBL, the Australian Basketball League that is notorious for developing NBA talents such as LaMelo Ball and RJ Hampton. But as a result, Kai Sotto would face yet another obstacle in his career. He would just come off of the bench for the Adelaide 36ers, and he would only average 16 minutes off the bench for the 36ers, and in that time put up 7.5 points, 4.5 rebounds, and nearly a block a game. He performed well in his limited time, so well that in fact that once he was given the opportunity to play 20 minutes in a game against the Brisbane Bullets, Sotto put up 21 points on 6 for 7 shooting, which proved that he wasn't just a rebounding and shot blocking machine, but also a solid offensive threat as well. This performance helped show fans Sotto's true potential, and as a result, convinced a lot of people that Sotto was a great player who simply wasn't given the minutes to succeed. This, plus Sotto's impressive numbers considering his lack of playing time, helped him earn the Fans MVP award given to the player voted on by the fans that had performed the best in the last season. Sotto, despite not being allowed to play for the G League's Ignite, a team that has boasted the likes of Jalen Green and Jonathan Kuminga, still had shown out in the NBL and proved that his skill was not just NBA ready, but maybe good enough to even be taken in the NBA draft. Going into the NBA draft, Kai Sotto was looking to be the first Philippine-born player in NBA history to be drafted by a team. It was so certain that Sotto would be drafted that night because he didn't just have 1, 2, or even 3 workouts with NBA teams. Nearly half the entire NBA had Sotto in their buildings for private workouts, meaning that there was definitely interest, and after all of these reports came out, Sotto was even being mocked as a potential late first-round pick. As draft day came closer and closer, the hype grew even more and more for the 7'2" unicorn who by all accounts can do anything on the basketball court. However, as draft night came and went, the night started and ended without Kai Sotto's name being said by Commissioner Adam Silver or even Deputy Commissioner Mark Tatum. Kai Sotto, after years of hype, build-up, highlights, and fanship, had gone undrafted. At first, many fans of Kai Sotto were confused. He's been hyped up for years. He can seemingly do it all. He's crushed his interviews, he's humble, he's willing to work, and has all the raw physical traits to succeed. So how come no team at least took a second-round flyer on the kid from the Philippines? Well, apparently in those private workouts, Sotto's body didn't appear as NBA ready as once thought. He wasn't as fast as he looked on tape, his first step was abysmally slow, and although he could shoot from anywhere on the court, he simply would not have kept up to the NBA pace of play. However, that doesn't mean he can't just yet. Sotto, with the right team surrounding him, could turn into the next undrafted Hall of Famer. And you just need to hear me out because I know that's a fairly bold claim. Sotto is already 7'2", and according to himself, his doctors have said he has the potential to get even taller. His wingspan is God knows how long, and he has better shooting form than half of the NBA already. He's a natural shot blocker, and just in general, you cannot teach natural size. But what you can develop is a better first step. What you can develop is getting faster as a player with better food intake, and you can develop your body. Everything scouts are knocking Kai Sotto for are things that are fixable. After the draft, Sotto would say,
I can't really explain the feeling, but it's not a good feeling, obviously. I really worked hard and really did my best to get here, but it's what happened, and I believe God has better plans for me, and just keep on going, and I won't stop.
Initially, Sotto's agent would say that he would return to the NBL to finish his contractual obligations with the 36ers. But recently, Sotto has come out and said that he wishes to play in the United States in order to play in the Summer League to try and get on an NBA roster for the upcoming season. In my opinion, Kai Sotto is a fantastic basketball player, and the fact he went undrafted is honestly mind-boggling. He has almost the exact same skill set as the number 2 overall pick in this past year's NBA draft, Chet Holmgren. He has the exact physical build of Kevin Durant. He grew up under a former professional player, is as humble as a player can get, he's willing to learn, and the way NBA teams are treating Kai Sotto, you think he's cursed out their coaching staff during his private workouts. Like I said previously, all of Sotto's flaws are coachable and fixable, and the fact that a general manager and talent evaluators saw that and passed on him is very confusing. Usually teams pass on players for uncoachable issues, tendencies, tendencies that you can't shake, or even a bad personality. But for Kai Sotto, I cannot stress enough how confusing it is for a coach to look at a 7'2", essentially clay model willing to turn into anything and pass on him because they are afraid that they aren't good enough to coach him up. Kai Sotto is everything a modern NBA big needs to be, and he does everything at an elite level. Sure, he doesn't have the speed of an NBA All-Star immediately, and yeah, of course he is going to need to put on some weight in order to make it at the next level, but the last prospect that they said was too skinny and slow to succeed in the NBA ended up having a thing or two to say about that.